I flew 2,000 miles for a black tie dinner, thinking 5 years of silence had finally bought me a seat at the family table. I was wrong. The waiter steered me past the crystal glasses and laughter to a folding table shoved against the kitchen door. My place card sat between a sippy cup and an ice bucket. It was not a mistake. I realized then that I was not here to eat. I was here to be eaten. My name is Harper Dawson. I am 34 years old, and I analyze financial wreckage for a living. At Raven Rock Compliance Group in Philadelphia, I spend 50 hours a week hunting for the smallest discrepancies in corporate ledgers, tracking the invisible lines where money turns into lies. I am good at it because I know how to look for the things people try to hide. But when the envelope arrived on my desk, cream-colored and heavy as a brick, I forgot everything I knew about suspicion. It was embossed with the silver cactus logo of the Silver Saguaro Club in Scottsdale, Arizona. Inside was an invitation from my father. Gordon Dawson requested the pleasure of my company at a black tie family dinner. It felt like a peace offering. It felt like an apology. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Marianne, my stepmother. Be there at 7 sharp, dress appropriate, and Harper, please just don't make it difficult this time. I flew 2,000 miles because a part of me is still a stupid child waiting for approval. I told myself this was it. After 5 years of being the spare part in their shiny new machine, after 5 years of missed holidays and silence, they were finally letting me back in. But as the plane touched down in the heat of the desert, my professional instincts kicked in. I decided I would not beg. I would not ask for affection. I would just observe. I walked into the ballroom of the Silver Saguaro Club, and the air smelled of expensive perfume and chilled lilies. The lighting was low and golden, designed to make diamonds sparkle and wrinkles vanish. I saw my father immediately. Gordon stood in the center of the room, holding a glass of scotch, his head thrown back in a laugh that boomed off the walls. Beside him stood my brother, Trent, looking tanned and golden in a tuxedo that probably cost more than my first car. They were surrounded by wealthy friends, a circle of power that seemed impenetrable. I took a breath and stepped forward, ready to join them. A waiter in a crisp white vest stepped into my path. He held a silver tray lined with small, folded cards. Name, he asked, his eyes scanning my dress as if checking for dust. Harper, I said. He ran a gloved finger down the rows of calligraphy. He plucked a card from the very back. It did not have a table number. It did not have a seat assignment next to my father or my brother. Harper, kids' table, he read aloud. I froze. Excuse me, he pointed a gloved hand toward the far corner of the room. I looked there. Shoved against the swinging metal doors of the kitchen was a folding table covered in a plain white cloth. It was positioned directly behind a large, sweating industrial ice bucket and the path the servers took to clear dirty dishes. I felt a hand on my forearm. Marianne appeared beside me. She wore emerald silk and a smile that looked like it had been painted on by a master artist. Oh, good, you found your spot, she said. Her voice was light, breathless. We just thought you would be more comfortable over there. It is so much more fun, less pressure for everyone. You know, she did not wait for an answer. She did not look me in the eye. She patted my arm twice, a gesture one might use on a dog, and turned on her heel to glide back to Gordon. She looped her arm through his, and he did not even turn his head to look at me. I stood there for 10 seconds. The humiliation burned under my skin like a fever. I walked to the corner, I pulled out the low folding chair, and sat down. To my left was a 13-year-old cousin playing a game on a tablet. Across from me was the 7-year-old daughter of one of Marianne's friends. She was stirring a glass of juice with a finger. She stopped and looked at me with wide, innocent eyes. Are you in timeout? She asked. The air left my lungs. I looked at the main table where my father was toasting with a senator. I looked at my name card sitting next to a pile of crayons. I did not cry. I did not flip the table. I reached into my clutch and took out my phone. I opened a blank note. My fingers were steady as I typed a single question. What do they want from me tonight? because they did not invite me here to eat. They invited me here to be used, and I was going to find out why. I picked up a cold bread roll and tore it in half. The sound was sharp in the quiet corner of the room. Sitting here, exiled to the edge of the festivities, felt familiar. It was not a new sensation. It was just a physical manifestation of where I had stood, metaphorically, for the last decade. I have always been the reliable one. I was the safety net my family never acknowledged, but always used. When my brother Trent failed his second year of college because he was too busy partying in Miami, I was the one who wired $10,000 to cover his tuition so Dad would not find out. When Dad lost his job in 2008 and refused to give up his country club membership, I sent checks every month to cover the mortgage. I was the one who apologized to neighbors when the police showed up. I was the one who cleaned up the mess. Everything changed after my mother died. Gordon married Marianne, and suddenly the family dynamic shifted into something rigid and performative. Trent became the golden child, the shining star who could do no wrong even as he burned through cash like kindling. I was assigned a different role. I was the independent one, the one who didn't need help. It was a convenient label. It meant they never had to worry about me, and more importantly, they never had to give me anything. I remember the exact moment I stopped coming home. It was 3 years ago, at a charity fundraiser. We were all standing on the grand staircase for a family portrait. The photographer was adjusting his lens, and Marianne leaned over to me. She smelled of white wine and condescension. "Harper, honey, could you just maybe step out of the frame for this one," she had whispered, her hand gently pushing my shoulder. "Your dress isn't really on theme, and we want this to look cohesive." I stepped out. I watched them smile, Gordon, Marianne, and Trent, a perfect, cohesive unit. That was the day I realized I was not a member of the family. I was a prop that had ceased to be useful. That is why I became a compliance investigator. I hate being manipulated. I found comfort in the cold, hard logic of ledgers. Numbers do not lie to you about loving you. In my line of work, I learned that every lie leaves a trace, a missing receipt, a sudden transfer, a structured conversation designed to hide the truth. I learned to read the silence between the lines. So why was I here? Why did I fly across the country for a dinner that clearly did not want me because the invitation had said family only? Gordon never reached out first. I thought, foolishly, that perhaps he was dying, or perhaps he had finally woken up and realized he missed his daughter. I wanted to believe that the blood in my veins still mattered to him. I looked up from my bread roll and scanned the room. The family-only designation on the invitation was a lie. The main table was crowded with people who were definitely not related to us. I recognized a pair of high-powered real estate lawyers my father used for his zoning disputes. There were business partners I had seen in local magazines, and then there was a man I did not know. He sat at the far end of the table, wearing a suit that cost more than my annual salary. He had a heavy gold watch that caught the light every time he moved his hand. He was not eating. He was watching the room. Specifically, his eyes kept flickering toward me. The teenager next to me, a girl named Sloane with purple streaks in her hair, let out a loud sigh. She was scrolling through TikTok with the volume up. I glanced at her screen. It was a video posted 15 minutes ago. It was Marianne. She was holding a glass of champagne in the hotel suite upstairs, beaming at the camera. "Cheers to new beginnings," Marianne chirped in the video, her voice high and tight. "Big night tonight. Finally getting all that pesky paperwork sorted out. Future is looking bright." My stomach turned over. "Paperwork." I looked back at the main table. Gordon was leaning in, talking intensely to the man with the gold watch. Marianne was nodding, her hand resting on a thick leather folder sitting next to her plate. The kids' table was not just an insult. It was a strategy. They did not put me here just to humiliate me. They put me here because the conversation happening at the big table was not for my ears. They needed me in the building, but they needed me deaf and blind. They are going to try to sell me something. I whispered to no one. Or worse, they were going to try to make me buy something. I unlocked my phone again and texted the only person I trusted. I needed to know who the man with the gold watch was, and I needed to know before dessert was served. I need to wash my hands, I said to the table at large. Sloane did not look up from her screen. I walked away from the humiliation of the kids' table, but I did not head toward the restrooms. I followed the line of sight I had established earlier. Gordon and Marianne had slipped out a side door 5 minutes ago, and I wanted to know where they went. The hallway behind the ballroom was lined with heavy oak paneling that absorbed the sound of the party, turning the jazz band into a thin, ghostly hum. It was cooler here. I walked softly, my heels sinking into the thick carpet. I saw a door slightly ajar at the end of the corridor. Light spilled out in a narrow wedge. I stopped breathing. I recognized the voices immediately. She just needs to sign, and it is done, Marianne said. Her voice was low, urgent, lacking the sugary coating she used in public. Do not let her talk to the lawyer from the McAllister firm. If she sees the fine print, she will walk. I pressed my back against the wall, inching closer to the gap in the door. My father's voice answered, sounding tired and irritated. I know, Marianne. I know. But if we do not transfer that amount by Friday, the bank is going to call the loan. Trent is going to be exposed. My brother's name hung in the air like a foul smell. I peered through the crack between the door and the frame. They were in a small private meeting room. A large mahogany table sat between them. On it lay a thick cream-colored folder with sticky tabs flagging multiple pages. Marianne was tapping a manicured fingernail on the final page, pointing at a signature line like a car salesman trying to close a deal on a lemon. It is the only way! Gordon, she insisted. Then came the sentence that severed the last thread connecting me to these people. My father picked up a pen, turned it over in his fingers, and shrugged. I suppose you are right, he said, his voice terrifyingly casual. Pinning it on Harper is easy. She's always carried the weight for us anyway. She is used to it. He spoke about me not as a daughter, but as a beast of burden, an object designed to absorb impact. The coldness of it made my vision blur. I wanted to kick the door open and scream, but the professional part of my brain, the part that hunted fraudsters for a living, took over. Do not react. Gather evidence. I stepped back silently. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, but my hands were steady. I pulled out my phone. I took a photo of the brass plaque on the door, the Ocotillo room. I opened my voice memo app and hit record, capturing 10 seconds of their muffled conspiracy before ending it. I had the where and the what. Now I needed the who. I turned to head back to the ballroom, smoothing my dress, arranging my face into a mask of polite boredom. I rounded the corner and nearly collided with a wall of dark fabric. It was the man from the main table, the one with the gold watch. He was leaning against a pillar, blocking my path back to the party. Up close, he smelled of expensive tobacco and aggressive cologne. He smiled, but his eyes remained flat and unmoving, like a shark's. Ms. Dawson, he said. His voice was soft, smooth, and utterly devoid of warmth. I was hoping to catch you. I took a step back. I do not believe we have met. Cal Mercer, he said, extending a hand that I did not take. He did not seem offended. He just lowered his hand and checked his heavy gold watch. I have heard a lot about you, Harper. Your father says you are quite the problem solver. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. This man was not a family friend. He did not speak with the casual cadence of a country club member. He spoke with the precise, weighted diction of a man who collects debts. He looked at me the way a butcher looks at a side of beef, estimating the yield. I try to be helpful, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Good, Cal said, stepping aside just enough to let me pass, but staying close enough to invade my personal space, because this family has a lot of problems. And tonight, I think you are going to solve the biggest one. I walked past him, my skin crawling. I understood now. The dinner, the invitation, the family-only rule. It was all a stage set. My father and Marianne were the actors, but Cal Mercer was the director, and I was not the guest of honor. I was the sacrifice. I slid back into my folding chair at the children's table, my heart rate slowly returning to a resting rhythm. I picked up my fork and pushed a cold green bean around my plate. To the outside world, I was the polite, slightly awkward older cousin making room for the teenagers. Inside, my mind was running a forensic audit on my own family. "So, how is high school?" I asked the group, forcing a smile that felt tight on my face. "Are the football games still the big thing?" Most of them ignored me. But Sloane, my 17-year-old cousin, looked up from her phone. She had the bored, heavy-lidded look of someone who knew too much about adult business. She leaned in, lowering her voice so the younger kids would not hear. "You know why we are really here, right?" she whispered, her eyes darting toward the main table. "Do you know Uncle Gordon is selling that massive piece of land in Sedona, the one near the Red Rocks?" I kept my face neutral. I did not know he owned land in Sedona. "That is the thing," Sloane said, smirking. "My mom says it is not technically in his name. She says he is trying to flip it before anyone notices." My grip on the fork tightened. I pulled my phone back out, keeping it below the table line. I navigated to Trent's Instagram. His feed was a curated exhibition of unearned luxury watches, cars, parties. I scrolled back 6 months. Nothing. But I knew how Trent operated. He bragged first and thought later. I switched to a cached version of his profile page. There it was. A deleted post from last November. A photo of Trent standing in the middle of a desert scrubland, arms wide open. The caption read, "Future site of the Dawson Desert Retreat. Big things coming. Empire owner." I screenshotted the cache. Owner. If Trent was claiming ownership. But Gordon was doing the selling, and Cal Mercer was involved in the debt the circle was closing. Suddenly, a shadow fell over our table. Marianne was back. She did not sit. She loomed. "Harper, darling," she said, placing a hand on my shoulder. Her touch was light, but it felt like a brand. "Once you are done eating, why don't you join us in the private lounge, just family? We want to talk about the future." "The future?" I asked. "Yes. We have some exciting news," she said, her eyes gleaming. "And we really need everyone on the same page." She drifted away before I could answer. I looked over at the main table. The seat where I should have been sitting, the empty space I had assumed was just an oversight, was now occupied by the man with the gold watch. Cal Mercer. My name card was nowhere to be seen. They had not just moved me, they had replaced me. Gordon stood up, tapping a knife against his champagne flute. The room went quiet. "I want to propose a toast," my father boomed, his face flushed with alcohol and triumph. He placed a hand on Trent's shoulder. Trent looked pale, sweating slightly under the lights. "To my son. He has had some growing pains, but he is finally stepping up. He is about to launch his very own project. To Trent. To Trent!" The room echoed. I did not raise my glass. I saw Trent's hand shake as he drank. He did not look like a man launching a project. He looked like a man facing a firing squad. A waitress hurried past our table, collecting empty glasses. In her rush, she dropped a small slip of paper near my elbow. It was a chit for a wine tasting flight, printed on thermal paper. She reached for it, but I was faster. "I will take that," I said. She nodded and hurried off. I looked at the slip. It wasn't just a receipt at the top, under the table number. It read, "Private room, Mercer meeting, guest count 4, billed to G. Dawson." The timestamp was from 4 o'clock that afternoon. I felt a cold thrill of vindication. Cal Mercer had not just bumped into me in the hall. He had been meeting with my father and Marianne hours before the dinner started. This entire evening, the family-only invite, the seating arrangement. The speech was a carefully choreographed play, and I was the only one who did not have a script. I folded the receipt and slipped it into the hidden pocket of my dress. Then I took a photo of it, uploading it immediately to my cloud storage. They think they can trap me with paper, I thought, looking at my father laughing across the room. But if this is a paper trap, I am going to turn it into an evidence trap. I stood up. I am ready for the lounge now, I whispered to myself. I stopped in the hallway, shielded by a large potted palm, and pulled out my phone. My hands were no longer shaking. The cold clarity of a crisis manager had taken over. I opened my encrypted messaging app and found Noah Klein, a civil litigator in Phoenix who had been my best friend since law school orientation. I typed a single, precise message. Need you to act as a witness. Come to the Silver Saguaro immediately. High probability of coercion regarding legal documents. Do not call. I hit send. Then I switched to a secure chat with Tessa Rourke, a forensic accountant back at Raven Rock. I sent her a location pin and a name. Run a background check on Cal Mercer, Arizona. Look for civil suits, distressed asset management, or predatory lending history. I need it 5 minutes ago. I slipped the phone into my clutch, took a deep breath, and walked toward the lounge. Marianne was waiting by the door. She ushered me inside. The room was small and freezing cold, smelling of lemon polish and old cigars. The heavy door clicked shut behind us, sealing out the noise of the party. My father sat at a round table, his hands clasped over a stack of documents. Trent sat next to him, staring at the mahogany surface as if he were trying to memorize the grain. I sat down opposite them. I did not smile. On the table were 3 documents. I read the titles upside down: personal guarantee, indemnification agreement, limited power of attorney. Gordon cleared his throat. He looked older under the harsh, recessed lighting. Harper, look. We know this is sudden, but we are in a bit of a tight spot with liquidity. Just a temporary cash flow issue. He pushed the papers across the table toward me. A heavy fountain pen lay on top of them. You just need to sign these to help the family get through this next quarter, Gordon said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I will handle everything else. You won't even have to think about it again. Trent did not look up, but his eyes were fixed on the signature line. He looked like a drowning man staring at a life raft. I did not pick up the pen. I leaned back, crossing my arms. What assets are being collateralized? I asked. What specific loan is this guaranteeing? And why is my name on a power of attorney document? Marianne laughed, a brittle sound that cracked in the cold air. Oh, Harper, stop trying to be a lawyer. It is simple. Your father and Trent are leveraged at the moment. You have a pristine credit history and no debt. It is just leverage. A name on a paper is liability, I said. If the loan defaults, the guarantor is responsible for the full amount plus interest. It won't default, Trent snapped, his head jerking up. His eyes were red-rimmed. It is a bridge loan we just need 6 months to get the Sedona project liquid. I reached for the papers. I need to read these thoroughly. I am going to take them outside where the light is better. No, Marianne said too quickly. She placed a hand on the documents. Read them here. We don't want to make a scene with the guests. I left my hand on the table, near my phone. I subtly swiped the screen to ensure the voice recorder was still running. I needed them to say it. Explain it to me then, I said, pitching my voice to sound hesitant, like a daughter who wanted to trust her father. If I sign this, what exactly am I promising to pay? Nothing, Gordon said. It is just insurance for the bank. My phone buzzed against the table. I glanced down. A notification from Tessa. Red flag. Mercer runs a shadow equity fund called Vulture Capital. He buys distressed debt and sues family members of the debtor for assets. He has 12 active lawsuits in Maricopa County alone. My blood ran cold. This was not a loan. This was a harvest. Another buzz. Noah, I am 10 minutes out. Do not sign anything. If they try to stop you from leaving the room, call 911. I am serious. Harper. I looked up at my father. He was smiling, offering me the pen again. I realized then that the lock on the door wasn't just to keep the party out, it was to keep the victim in. They were not asking for a favor, they were cornering me. And I knew that if I did not sign, things were about to get very ugly. I placed my hands flat on the cool mahogany table. I did not push the papers away, but I did not pick up the pen. I looked at my father, then at Marianne, and finally at Trent, who was still vibrating with anxiety. I needed to move this chess game to a board where I had the advantage. I am willing to consider signing, I said, keeping my voice steady, but I have conditions. First, I need a copy of this entire packet to keep for my records. And second, I want to talk to Cal Mercer. If I am guaranteeing his investment, I want to look him in the eye and ask him a few questions. Marianne bristled. Cal is a busy man. Harper. He does not need to be bothered with get him. Gordon interrupted. He looked relieved that I had not walked out. If it gets her to sign, get him. 2 minutes later, Cal Mercer strolled into the lounge. He did not look surprised. He looked like a man who had been waiting in the wings for his cue. He offered me a thin, tight smile. Ms. Dawson, he said smoothly. I understand you have some hesitation. I do, I said. I stood up, forcing them to look up at me. You want me to sign as the primary guarantor. That means if this project in Sedona fails, and from what I hear, it is already on shaky ground, I am the one liable for the debt. You are looking for a fall guy, Mr. Mercer. Am I right? Cal chuckled. A dry sound like sandpaper on wood. You are looking at this too emotionally. Harper, it is just asset allocation, risk management. We are all on the same team here. He was arrogant. He thought I was a scared daughter trying to protect her pennies. He did not know I was building a case file. I feel a bit claustrophobic in here, I said, touching my throat as if I were struggling for air. Can we move this to the bar area? I think I need a drink if I am going to sign my life away. Marianne exchanged a look with Gordon. She nodded. She thought I was cracking. She thought a drink would soften me up for the kill. We moved out to the main bar. It was crowded, noisy, and most importantly, covered by 3 different high-definition security cameras mounted in the ceiling corners. I picked a table right in the center of their field of view. I waited until the waiter had poured the wine. Then I leaned in toward my father, letting my lower lip tremble just enough to be convincing. Dad, I said, my voice wavering, I want you to be proud of me. I want to be part of this family again. Is this really the only way Gordon softened? The alcohol and the relief were making him sloppy. He reached out and covered my hand with his. I made sure not to pull away. Harper, honey, he said, loud enough for the couple at the next table to hear. I am proud of you. But we need this. Trent can't have this debt on his record. Just sign in his place, and everything will go back to the way it was. We will be a family again. I froze the smile on my face. He had just admitted it. Sign in his place. It was an admission of fraud, using me to bypass credit requirements for Trent. And the camera above the bar had seen it all. I glanced at the mirror behind the bar. A man in a gray suit had just walked in. He looked like he was searching for someone, then settled onto a stool 3 tables away. It was Noah Klein. He did not look at me. He ordered a soda and set his briefcase on the floor. I had my witness. Okay, I said, wiping a fake tear from my cheek. I need to use the ladies' room just to compose myself. Then I will sign. I walked to the restroom with my head down. The moment the stall door latched, the act dropped. I moved with blinding speed. I opened my phone. I sent the audio file of the meeting, the photo of the Mercer receipt, and a screenshot of Cal's background info to Noah. Then I emailed the entire package to my work address and my personal secure cloud, creating an immutable timestamp. I washed my hands, checked my reflection, and walked back out. I returned to the table where my family, my predators, were waiting. I sat down and pulled a notepad from my purse. I am ready, I said. But since we are doing this professionally, I have one last request. Since I'm assuming all the risk, I need you, Dad, and you, Mr. Mercer, to sign this addendum first. I slid my notepad across the table. On it, I had hastily scrawled a statement of full disclosure. It just says that you have disclosed all current debts, liens, and the true ownership status of the Sedona land, I said, my voice sharpening. If everything is as clean as you say, it should be no problem to sign. Right. Cal's smile vanished. Gordon looked at the paper, then at me. They knew that signing a false disclosure statement was a felony. They wanted me to sign their lie, but they were terrified to sign my truth. Well, I asked, uncapping my pen. Who goes first? Marianne's patience snapped like a dry twig. The sophisticated hostess mask she had been wearing all evening finally slipped, revealing the jagged edges underneath. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the marble floor with a sound that made the nearby guests wince. She grabbed my upper arm, her manicured nails digging into my flesh through the silk of my dress, and pulled me toward the decorative pillar near the entrance of the bar, away from the prying eyes of the security cameras I had been relying on. Stop the theatrics! Harper! She hissed, her face inches from mine. Her breath smelled of expensive champagne and mints. You always loved playing the victim. You have been doing it since you were 12 years old. Do not think you can embarrass us into getting your way. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then up at her furious eyes. I did not pull away. I did not raise my voice. I simply let the cold reality of the situation settle between us. No, I said calmly. I do not like playing the victim. I just like the truth. And the truth is, you are trying to defraud me in a country club bar. Before she could answer, Trent rushed over. He looked like he was about to be sick. He did not care about the scene we were making. He only cared about the signature he needed to save his skin. He grabbed my other hand, his palms damp with sweat. Harper, please, he begged, his voice cracking. I just need you to help me this one time. Just this once. I promise I will pay it back. I swear. I looked at my brother. For years, I had thought he was just spoiled, a boy who had been given too much too soon. But looking at him now, I saw something darker. He did not want an opportunity to succeed. He did not want a partner. He wanted a mule. He wanted someone to carry the load so he could keep walking upright. I pulled my hand away from him and took a step back, intentionally moving back into the center of the room. I raised my voice, pitching it just loud enough to carry over the ambient jazz music. So, tell me, Trent, I asked, my voice ringing clear. Who exactly holds the deed to the Sedona project? Is it in your name, or is it held by a shell company in the Cayman Islands? Gordon appeared at my elbow instantly, his face a mask of panic. Lower your voice, he commanded. This is not the place. But it was too late. The conversation at the table nearest to us had stopped. A man with silver hair and a deeply tanned face turned in his chair. He was a local fixture, the owner of a chain of luxury car dealerships. He squinted at our group, his eyes landing on Cal Mercer, who was still sitting at our table with the unsigned documents. Mercer, the man said, loud enough for half the bar to hear. Is that Cal Mercer? I thought you only handled foreclosures and asset stripping these days. Didn't know you were into family dinners. The air in the room changed instantly. It shifted from a celebratory gathering to something sordid. The guests exchanged looks. They knew Cal Mercer's reputation. If he was here, there was blood in the water. Then, a ripple of laughter moved through the younger crowd near the patio doors. I saw phones lighting up. People were whispering and pointing not at Cal, but at me, or rather, at the corner where I had been sitting. I glanced at my phone. A notification from Instagram popped up. It was from Sloane. She had posted a story to her public account just minutes ago. It was a photo of the kids' table, the sippy cup, the crayons, and my name card with the caption, When you are 34, but your family still thinks you belong in daycare. Awkward family drama. The humiliation should have crushed me. Instead, it hardened me. They had tried to shame me into submission, but they had accidentally given me an audience. Marianne saw the phones too. She realized the situation was spiraling out of control. She grabbed my arm again, harder this time. "We are leaving," she snapped. "We're going to finish this conversation in the car. Now." She tried to drag me toward the exit. I planted my feet, ready to resist, but I didn't have to. A gray suit stepped into her path. Noah Klein moved with the casual authority of a man who spent his life in courtrooms. He did not raise his voice. He simply placed himself between Marianne and me. "I would not do that if I were you," Noah said. He held out a business card. "I am Noah Klein, Ms. Dawson's attorney. From this moment forward, any conversation you wish to have with my client will happen in my presence. And if you touch her again, I will have the police here in 3 minutes to file assault charges." Marianne dropped my arm as if it were burning. Gordon stepped forward, his face shifting from anger to a desperate, cloying sadness. He knew he had lost control of the room, so he went for the only weapon he had left: emotional blackmail. "Harper," he said, his voice trembling with manufactured grief. "I raised you. I fed you. How can you do this to us? Your mother, God rest her soul. She would be so disappointed to see you acting like this. She would be ashamed." The bar went silent. It was a low blow, the lowest he could possibly aim. He was using the memory of the woman I loved to manipulate me into financial ruin. I looked him dead in the eye. I felt absolutely nothing for him. "Do not," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a scalpel. "Use the dead to sign papers for the living." I took a breath and looked at the three of them, my father, my stepmother, and my brother. "I have a simple proposal," I said. "If this is truly a family dinner, and if I am truly family, then invite me to sit at the adult table. Right now, move a chair, set a place, treat me like an equal. If you can't do that, then I am walking out that door, and you will never see me again." I waited. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Gordon did not move. He did not signal the waiter. He just stood there, staring at the floor, unable to give me even that small dignity, because it would mean admitting he was wrong. His silence was the loudest sound in the room. It was the answer I'd been waiting for all night. I walked out of the Silver Saguaro Club, and the heavy glass doors hissed shut behind me, cutting off the jazz and the hum of the air conditioning. The desert night was sudden and absolute. I didn't run. I walked to my rental car, a nondescript silver sedan parked in the shadows of a mesquite tree, and sat in the driver's seat. I did not turn on the engine. I did not cry. Crying is a biological response to grief, and I was not grieving. I was processing. My phone lit up on the passenger seat. It was a barrage of notifications from Tessa. I opened the first email. It contained a PDF attachment of a corporate filing from the Arizona Corporation Commission. Subject: found it. Body check the registered agent address. I zoomed in. The entity was called Dawson Desert Holdings, LLC. The mailing address listed was my old apartment in Philadelphia, a place I had moved out of 3 years ago. I scrolled to the bottom of the filing. There, in digital black ink, was a signature Harper Dawson. It looked like my signature. It had the same sharp slant, the same crossed T, but the loop on the D was too wide. It was a simulation, a practiced copy. My phone buzzed again. A text from Noah. "Freeze everything. Now, if they have an LLC in your name, they have credit in your name." I switched apps to my credit monitoring service. My pulse remained steady, but my stomach dropped. There was a notification I had missed because I had turned off alerts for the dinner. New hard inquiry, Scottsdale Community Bank. Date November 15th. I had not been in Scottsdale on November 15th. I had been in Philadelphia, conducting an audit on a pharmaceutical supply chain. I tapped the screen. Fingers moving with the muscle memory of 1,000 investigations, I initiated a total credit freeze on all 3 bureaus. Then I dialed the number for the compliance department of Scottsdale Community Bank. I did not call the customer service line. I called the back office number I knew from my own industry contacts. Compliance, a woman's voice answered. "This is Harper Dawson," I said, my voice dropping into the flat, authoritative register I used when interviewing embezzlers. "I am calling regarding an unauthorized credit inquiry on my file. Reference number 45992. I am flagging this as a priority 1 identity theft case. I need the origination IP address and the phone number used for 2-factor authentication attached to that application immediately." "Ma'am, I cannot release that information without a subpoena," the officer said. "You have a fraudulent application in your system that violates Know Your Customer regulations," I cut in. "If I file a report with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau before I get those details, your bank is looking at a massive compliance fine. I am a certified fraud examiner. Do you really want to do this the hard way?" There was a pause, the sound of typing. 1 moment. While I waited, a knock on my window made me jump. A young man in a valet uniform was standing there, looking breathless. I rolled the window down 2 inches. "Ms. Dawson?" he asked. "I am so sorry to disturb you." But a lady inside, Mrs. Dawson, she said you might have accidentally taken some confidential documents. She asked me to check. I looked past him toward the entrance of the club. Marianne was standing under the portico. She was not looking at the valet. She was pressing a phone to her ear, her other hand gripping the strap of her purse so hard her knuckles were white. I rolled the window down another inch so I could hear her. The desert air carried her voice clearly. "She knows, Cal," Marianne said, her voice high and frantic. "She isn't just leaving. She has the proof. She knows about the LLC." The pieces clicked together in my mind like the tumblers of a safe. They did not just need me to sign the new loan to save the project. They needed me to sign to ratify the fraud they had already committed. If I walked away, now, the loan they took out in my name would default, and when the bank came for me, I would prove it was forgery. They would go to prison. The only way they stayed out of jail was if I signed that papers in the lounge, retroactively authorizing their theft. "Ms. Dawson," the valet asked again, looking nervous. "Do you have the papers?" I looked at him. Then I looked at Marianne, who was now staring at my car with terrified eyes. "No," I said to the valet, "I do not have the papers, but I am going to go get them." I hung up the phone. I unlocked the car doors. I was not going to drive away. I was going to go back in there and finish this. They wanted a family dinner. Fine, I was going to serve them the truth, and I was going to do it right in the middle of the dining room where they could not hide. "Tell Mrs. Dawson I am coming back," I said, "and tell her to get the manager." I walked back into the lobby of the Silver Saguaro Club. Marianne met me at the door, her face a mixture of relief and irritation. She thought she had won. She thought I had gone to the car to cry and had realized that I had no choice but to submit to the family will. She did not know I had gone to the car to sharpen my knife. "I am willing to talk," I said, stopping in the center of the atrium where the crystal chandelier cast a bright, unforgiving light. "But we do it here, in the open, under the cameras, and we do it with the full file." "Harper." "Really? The lounge is much more private," Marianne hissed, glancing around at the other guests. "I am done with private," I said. I walked to a seating area near the concierge desk and sat down. Gordon and Trent followed, looking like men walking to the gallows. I waited until they were seated. In my peripheral vision, I saw Noah settle into a wingback chair 10 feet away. He opened his laptop, the screen angled away from us, his fingers hovering over the keys. He was not working. He was transcribing. I looked at my father. I kept my voice low, calm, and terrifyingly reasonable. "I want to understand the logic." "Dad," I said, "who established the LLC who submitted the loan application? And why did you use my old address in Pennsylvania? Gordon wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. It was a mistake. Harper, a clerical error. We just needed to get the paperwork through quickly to secure the land rights. We intended to tell you. We just ran out of time. You did not run out of time. I said. You ran out of credit. You used my name because yours is toxic. Correct. Because you are clean. Gordon exploded, his voice rising loud enough to turn heads. Because you have always been the perfect one. You can take it, you can absorb the risk. We can't. I saw Noah's fingers fly across his keyboard. Motive established. My father had just admitted on record that he targeted me specifically for my financial health. At that moment, Cal Mercer approached. He had a drink in his hand and a smile that did not reach his eyes. He stopped by our circle, acting the part of the benevolent mediator. He looked at the concierge who was passing by with a tray of water. "Excuse me," Cal said to the staff member. "Could you bring a pen? Our guarantor is ready to sign the closing documents." The concierge nodded. "Of course, sir." I mentally pinned that sentence to the wall. Cal had just identified me as the guarantor in front of a neutral witness, confirming his knowledge of my alleged role in a deal I had never agreed to. "I will sign," I said, watching the hope flare in Trent's eyes. "But only if I can review the original digital audit trail of the application. I need to be sure the dates align." "The dates are fine," Cal said, dismissing me with a wave of his hand. "Standard processing? Then you won't mind if we print the metadata report right now," I said. I stood up and walked to the business center desk adjacent to the lobby. "Sir," I said to the clerk, "can you please print the document I just emailed to the guest services address? It is a PDF of the loan origination log." Cal's smile faltered. He had agreed too quickly. Thinking I was bluffing, he did not realize I had access to the banking side of the equation. The clerk handed me a single sheet of warm paper. I walked back to the table and placed it down in the center, smoothing it out with my hand. "Here's the problem," I said, pointing to the highlighted line. This electronic signature was applied on November 15th at 2:13 in the morning. I looked at Marianne. She had gone the color of ash. I was in Philadelphia on November 15th. I continued. "But this signature, it originated from an IP address registered to a residential gateway in Scottsdale, Arizona, specifically the Wi-Fi network of the Dawson residence. The silence that followed was absolute. I had them. It wasn't just a bad deal. It was wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. And I had the map that led straight to their router." Trent made a strangled noise. He lunged across the table, his hand clawing for the paper. "Give me that security." Noah's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. He was on his feet in an instant, stepping between Trent and me. Two uniformed security guards who had been hovering near the entrance moved in immediately. "Please log that the subject attempted to destroy evidence and physically approach my client," Noah said to the guards. Trent froze, his hand hovering in the air, his face crumbling into the terrified expression of a child who realizes the game is over. I picked up the paper and folded it neatly. I did not scream. I did not throw my drink. I looked at my father, who was slumped in his chair, a man whose castle built on sand was sliding into the sea. "You put me at the kids' table because you wanted me to be small," I said. "You wanted me to sit there, color in my coloring book, and keep my mouth shut while you sold my future to pay for your mistakes." I stood up straight, smoothing the front of my dress. "But the thing is, Dad, I grew up." And I brought the receipts. Noah did not wait for the security guards to finish subduing Trent. He was already on the phone, his voice calm and carrying the heavy weight of the law. "Dispatch. This is Noah Klein, attorney at law. I am at the Silver Saguaro Club. I am reporting an active situation involving identity theft, fraud, and attempted coercion." "Yes, we require officers on site. We have the perpetrators detained by private security." The manager of the club, a man in a terrified tuxedo, nodded vigorously to the security team. He knew exactly what a scandal like this could do to his membership fees. He wanted us processed, quieted, and removed. He was on my side simply because I was the one holding the fire extinguisher while my family held the matches. "This is ridiculous," Gordon shouted, standing up and trying to straighten his jacket. His face was a map of ruin. "Officer, or whoever you are, this is a family matter, a misunderstanding between a father and daughter." "No," I said, stepping forward. The entire lobby was watching now. "This is not a family matter. This is my identity being used as collateral for a loan I never asked for. My credit score is not a family heirloom. Dad, you cannot just borrow it when you break yours." My phone rang again. It was the compliance officer from the bank. I put it on speaker and held it up like a lantern in the darkness. "Ms. Dawson," the voice on the line said, clear and tinny. "We have traced the two-factor authentication for the application. The verification code was sent to a mobile number ending in 8802. Every head turned toward Marianne. Everyone in the family knew those digits. It was the number she had used to text me earlier, telling me to dress appropriately. Trent made a sound that was half sob, half gasp. He collapsed back into his chair, burying his face in his hands. "I told you," Trent wailed, his voice high and broken. "I told Mom not to use her number. I said Harper would check, but Cal said we needed the guarantee by midnight or he would pull the funding." He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. "Harper, I just wanted the project to work. Mom said she would handle the paperwork. I let her do it." There it was. Trent was not the mastermind. He was just a coward who was willing to let me burn to keep himself warm. Cal Mercer stood up, buttoning his jacket. "Well, this seems like a domestic dispute. I think I will be going. My firm has no part in sit down." "Cal," Noah said. He pointed to Cal's phone, which was sitting face down on the table. A tiny red light was pulsing at the top edge. "Officer, when you arrive, you might want to seize that device. Arizona is a one-party consent state for recording, but I have a strong suspicion Mr. Mercer has been recording this entire transaction to blackmail the Dawsons later." Cal's face went blank. He lunged for the phone, but the security guard was faster. The guard snatched the device. He turned it over. The screen showed an active voice memo recording named Dawson Leverage Strategy. "Play it," I said. The guard pressed play. Cal's voice, recorded perhaps an hour ago, drifted out. We pushed the girl to sign. "If the land deal tanks, we seize her assets first. The father's dry, but the daughter has liquidity. We shift the risk to her." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a diamond. Gordon stood frozen, staring at the man he thought was his savior, realizing he had invited a wolf to dinner and offered his daughter as the main course. Police officers walked through the front doors, the blue lights from their cruisers flashing against the expensive glass. Marianne tried to sidestep toward the exit, clutching her purse, but a guard stepped gently but firmly in her path. "Ma'am, please stay right there," he said. I walked over to the officer in charge. I felt light, as if a heavy coat I had been wearing for 20 years had finally fallen off. "My name is Harper Dawson," I said. "I want to file a formal report for identity theft and fraud, and I want a temporary restraining order against these 3 individuals." Gordon looked at me, his eyes hollow. "Harper, please. We are ruined. If you do this, the club, the business, it is all gone. We are family." I looked at him. I looked at the table where they had tried to feed me to the wolves. "Consequences aren't revenge. Dad," I said. "They are just the bill coming due. I am not destroying this family. I am just refusing to be the life raft you drown while trying to save yourselves." I turned my back on them. I walked past the lounge, past the bar, and past the kids' table in the corner. I pushed open the heavy doors and walked out into the cool desert night. I was alone, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't lonely. I was free. Thanks so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you guys are tuning in from. Are you listening while driving, cooking dinner, or maybe hiding in the break room at work? Let me know in the comments below because I love reading where our community hangs out. And hey, if you enjoyed seeing Harper finally stand up for herself, please hit that subscribe button for the Victoria Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and smash that hype button so we can get the story out to more people who need to hear it.